Rain-soft dawn settled over Maple Down, its roof sipping mist. Teacups clicked in sleepy kitchens, and gutters murmured tales. From the lane of cobbles and time, a brass bell chimed twice. It belonged to the wayfinder's nook, a tea shop draped in maps. Inside, ink smelled like rain on parchment, sweet and old. Marinvale flipped the door sign to open and smiled. She wore a faded indigo apron, threaded with compass roses. Her curls were pinned by a sextant clip, polished daily. On the counter lay a tea chart, drawn like a coastline. The oolong currents curled toward bergamot bays, inviting explorers. She brewed the morning anchor, a smoky kimun with orange peel. Steam rose in calm spirals, mapping the ceiling beams. Marin listened to the kettle whistle, counting gentle beats. 3 beats meant patience, 4 meant warmth. Today asked for both, and maybe luck. The first guest arrived in galoshes, leaving petal-bright footprints. He was Mr. Devwell, retired bell ringer and local hammer. He carried the cardboard tube, secured with violet twine. His eyes held that maple down sparkle, quiet and nosy. Marin poured kimun into his charted cup, carefully steady. Found this in my attic, under the winter quilts, he said. Thought of you, and your mappy ways. Marin untied the twine, breath soft and slow. She unscrolled the paper, edges crackling like leaves. Ink lines shimmered with age and gentle mischief. It was a mac of maple down, but not quite. The streets bent into curlier arcs, like cursive walking. The brook shifted left by a thumb width, as if shy. And on the green near the bandstand, a tiny teacup symbol sat. Beneath it was a sigil, 2 moons and a feather. Marin felt a familiar tinkle, that cartographer's itch. Some maps told directions, others told moods. This one whispered riddles, soft as pastry crumbs. She fetched her lupined lamp, both warm companions. The inkwork looked hand-cut and constellated. The doorbell chimed again, and breezy perfume drifted in. Tamsin Reed arrived with a weathered satchel, smiling wide. She kept the town archives and wore boots for ladders. You got my message, Marin, she said. Something curious turned up and might involve tea. Tamsin set down a ledger, edges frayed like lace. Inside lay a receipt book, inked a century ago. It listed tea blends and prices, and an odd entry. Feather Moon Reserve, 2 tins, Tamsin read. Paid by initials E, L, delivered to the bandstand. Mr. Dovewell hummed a thoughtful accord, eyes on the map. The sigil matched the ledger words, moon and feather. Marion traced the teacup symbol, careful as breath. They brewed a test pot, something smoky and citrus. Marion marked the map's compass rose, aligning with the counter's edge. She rotated the page slowly, watching ink cleanse. A hidden watermark surfaced in the steam, pale as dawn. Letters appeared like shy gulls, then settled. Fold where the brook remembers, walk where tea cools, it read. Share warmth at the bandstand, when the hour leans. Tamsin pressed a palm to her lips, delighted. Mr. Dovewell whispered, a puzzle for kindness. Marion felt the room glow, like a kettle sigh. Outside, the day deepened into pearly silver. Customers trickled in like careful raindrops, gentle and familiar. Marion served crumpets with quince jam, listening for clues. She wrote orders on tiny ice bowers and dotted them with hearts. Each pause and chatter left soft room for the map's hush. Near noon, the baker brought poppy seed twists. He mentioned a rumor at the mill, turning slow. Someone had seen lantern light near the bandstand before dawn. No one owned to it, and no harm done. Marion tucked that pebble away for later ripples. Between refills, she studied the brook's line. Fold where the brook remembers, she repeated, softly. In Maple Down, remembrance had landmarks. There was the willow with ribbon scars, and the bend-legged imple. She sketched the true bank on tracing vellum, and matched curves. The Attic Maps brook were remembered differently, wider and older. At a pastent, a fold line could fit. Marion creased the paper along the ghost bent, precise and kind. The teacup symbol shifted toward the bandstand, as if walking. A second watermark bloomed, rose gold and shy. Cool the cup with company, open with laughter, it said. Mr. Dovewell chuckled on cue, pleased. Tamsin laughed like a bell rope, quick and bright. Marion touched the bandstand symbol, smile deepening. A faint arrow revealed itself, pointing to the green. They closed early with a polite note, promising scones. Mapledown understood gentle mysteries and cheered them. The trio walked under soft clouds, past hedges and hens. The bandstand waited like a lace umbrella, prim and dear. On its steps sat a porcelain saucer, rim-chipped kindly. Marin placed their traveling teapot on the saucer, carefully. Steam unfurled and shivered. She poured 3 small cups, cooling them together. They spoke of small joys, jam jars and buttons. Laughter curled round the railings, tender and round. A hinge beneath the saucer clicked, barely heard. The plank lifted a whisper, revealing an alcove. Inside lay a tin of feather moon and a note. The tin smelled of cedar and dusk, sweetly patient. The note wore ink like moth wings, fragile and true. For those who share warmth, the town remembers, it read. For Dake and carry on the circle. Tamsin clasped her satchel, eyes shining. Mr. Dovewell dabbed a corner, pretending dust. Marin breathed the cedar dusk and nodded. They tasted the tea like moonlit toast, but softer. Flavors unfurled as map legends, pearled with calm. Hints of plumstone and river rock, light as kindness. A distant memory rang close, childhood fires and patient puzzles. Marin felt the nook's lineage stirring, sweet and steady. They returned to the shop in falling light, content. Marin set the tin on a high shelf, centered. She copied the attic map by lamplight, measured and tender. There were still oddities to unspool, and she welcomed them. Outside, the brook kept a murmuring rhyme. Later, when chairs were upturned like sleepy beetles, she noticed a stamp. It hid near the compass rose, ink faint and shy. A cartouche reedy, L, flanked by feather moons. The Lowit Lake coordinates too tidy, perhaps mischief. Marin fetched her brass divider and plotted. The coordinates pointed to the hollow turn, a quiet lane. Headed since to the cottage with buried tiles, bashful. No one had lived there in years, by common memory. But a window now held a paper star, folded new. Marin marked tomorrow's errand the shop among rolled skies and whispers. Dreams drew coastlines on the dark, silver and sure. A teacup became a crescent harbor, sheltering gentle ships. A feather floated like a fairy, carrying laughter. Morning would bring the hollow turn and soft answers. At dawn again, she brewed compass meant for courage. Tamsin arrived with a scarf of bees, gold and charcoal. Mr. Devwell brought a sandwich for sharing, wrapped neat. They locked the nook with a clink and set off. Mabel down you underweight behind them, soft and pleased. The hollow turn smelled of linden bark and rain. A wren sounded like a tiny kettle, confident. The berry-tiled cottage waited without hurry, door ajar. A note hung from a ribbon, polite and plain, for the Mac-minded and their friends. Inside, dust motes turned like patient snow. Shelves held boxes labeled with winds, north and kindly. On the table lay a drafting board, scarred with stars. A kettle stood ready on a small stove, shined. Marin struck a match softly and poured. She found another map under the board, tucked. This one charted flavors like weather, moving gently. Gusts of clove met lemongrass drifts, north of cinnamon. At the center sat a symbol, a Dorkian moon. Tamsin read a penciled margin, ice bright. E.L. proposes a town planned exchange. Seasonal, she said. Neighbors leave a note of comfort and receive flavor. Mr. Derwell smiled like a bell about to ring, proud. A kindness registry, hidden in steam, he murmured. Marian felt the idea bloom, simple and bright. But a small question perched nearby, patient. Why resurrect the exchange now, after silence? Who tended the bandstand hinge, oiled and ready? Who folded the paper star, mewing neat? Marin touched the drafting scars, counting constellations. She opened a wind-labeled box marked Zephyr, curious. Inside lean letters tied in twine, violet again. They were addressed to E.L. and signed by townsfolk. Some thanked for warmth on lonely days, sweetly. Others praised the Mapties, gentle and true. At the bottom was a recent envelope, crisp. Postmark glimmered from last week, Thursday morning. It bore or no return, only a feather moon. Inside was a key wrapped in tea paper, lemon scented. A line read, "For Marin Vale, when the hour leans." Marin held the key carefully, heart warm. The shop bell had chimed twice yesterday, meaning someone had known her rhythm and trusted it. The cottage lock accepted the key like a sigh, soft. A hidden drawer slid open inside the stove, clever and safe. Within lay a leather folio, map thin. It contained the exchange charter, beautifully penned. Should the town grow forgetful, renew with tea, it said. Kindness leaves a map behind, to be followed. Marion smiled at Tamsin and Dovewell, steady and sure. We could relight this gently, without fuss, she said. A quiet relaunch at the bandstand. Twilight. Tamsin would craft a notice in cursive. Warm. Mr. Dovewell would ring 6 soft strokes. Mellow and clear. The town would arrive like moths to lamplight. Calm and glad. Yet one lantern remained unaccounted, glow in memory. Marin searched the cottage corners, finding footprints of care. No dust lay on the kettle handle, recently polished. A single crumb of Quinn's jam winged, familiar and bright. Someone had visited with her favorite jam yesterday morning. Back at the nook, she checked her jar shelf. One quince jar was lighter than memory, by a spoon. She kept a tiny ledger for spreads, a charming quirk. She traced the subtraction softly, then hummed. A friend had keys to her pantry, with permission. Only 3 had that key, all dear. Tamsin had hers on a B-ring, jingly. Mr. Dovewell's hung from a ribbon, tidy and violet. The 3rd belonged to Elsie Lark, retired schoolmistress and baker. L sounded suddenly like Elsie, very much so. Elsie Lark lived near the parish orchard, brisk and kind. She was away with a niece this week, supposedly. But a lantern at dawn and quince crumbs spoke otherwise. Marin brewed a small basket of plum tea for visiting. The orchard path smelled of hay and ink, faintly. Elsie's gait clicked like a pocket watch. Neat. A note hung there too, written in tidy rounds. In the shed for a short spell, map work, it read. Marin exhaled, warm with relief. shed glowed with quiet lamps and berries. Elsie stood at a bench with a compass, focused. She looked up with a smile like soft wool. Glad. You found the feather moons, dear Marin, she said. Tell me, did the town remember to laugh? They did, Elsie, Marin replied. And the bandstand opened sweetly, like pastry. Elsie poured from her own kettle, cinnamon bright. I worried my hands might feel the hinges. These days, she admitted. So I borrowed a spoon of quince for courage. They sat on apple crates with teacups, steady and warm. Elsie unfolded her plan softly, step by step. She had rekindled the exchange in secret to test the town. If the first puzzle found kindness, more would follow. If not, it would sleep again. Marin offered the charter's care with community. Elsie nodded, eyes watering like tea. I.me, L, only in ink, she said. The maps were shared work once, many hands. Now your hands are steady and generous. A gentle plan took shape between sips, unhurried. They would stage monthly riddles, each shaped by warmth. Clues would hide in steam and margins, just visible. Every solved kindness would flavor a tin, shared town-wide. The final blend would be called the cartographer's tea, naturally. As they parted, evening folded like parchment. Lantern moths drifted along hedges, gold and slow. Marin returned to the Nurk humming, mind alive. She arranged a small display for tomorrow, feather moons aligned. She wrote a note in looping hand, inviting gentle explorers. On the counter, she placed the tin of feather moon. Beside it, a blank map waited. Above, the ceiling beams gathered steam stories. Marin set her kettle to a lullaby simmer, soft and sure. Tomorrow would begin the exchange anew, with cinnamon bells. Twilight arrived like sugar tea, ember and kind. The green filled slowly with cardigans and scarves, softly layered. Children traced circles on the bandstand planks, counting softly. Mr. Dovewell rang 6 mellow strokes, honey deep. A hush gathered and smiled. Tamsin read the notice with library calm, warm and bright. A kind miss exchange resumes for Maple Down, anchored in tea, she said. gone silvery. Neighbors placed folded slips in a wicker bowl, bashful and pleased. One offered pie delivery during rain, cherry or plum. Another promised quiet errands for aching knees, tender. A child pledged marigold seeds for front steps, sunny and round. Laughter moved like tide under moon, steady and low. Marion said the feather moon tin is a beacon, centered. She ladled the tasting sip for volunteers, mindfully measured. Steam kissed the old bandstand rails, revealing faint script. Words curled where wood once shone plain, soft and secret. Carry on the circle, the rails repeated, silver thin. As evening thinned to moth wing, an oddity arrived. A slim envelope lay by the steps, unnoticed at first. Its seal showed a compass reversed, south where north sat. The paper smelled faintly of sea salt and lime peel. Tamsin raised a brow like a bookmark, curious and calm. Inside was a narrow map strip, hand cut. It showed only 3 things, spare and careful. A teacup, a feather moon, and a tiny shoe print. Beside the shoe print, a dot of copper ink. On the reverse, a simple line. Find the step that listens and set it right, it read. Mr. Dove will hummed a thinking chord, bell soft. Marion crouched by the bandstand stairs, hands sure. One trick carried a breathy creak, different from the rest. She pressed lightly along the grain, patient as rain. Under her palm a peg shifted, half a whisper. The creak evened into a rusted tone, content. Beneath a corrected tread, a hinge clicked kindly. Another alcove revealed a tin, smaller and square. Its label reads Southwind Citrus, inked reverse. She opened the tin to an aroma of harbor and dusk. Orange blossom met toasted barley, hand in hand. A folded card rested beneath the leaves, delicately placed. For those who listen and mend, take brightness, it said. Murmurs of approval drifted like linen, fresh and soft. Night finished its tea and settled, satisfied. Lanterns throbbed along lanes like quiet constellations, unhurried. Marion washed cups by the nook's back door, warm wrist deep. Steam wrote shy glyphs on the pane, moth pale. One glyph resembled the reverse compass, tilted south. She dabbed the pane with a cloth corner, gently. The mark held, as if etched in cool. She traced its circle with a fingertip, slow and sure. A faint second ring answered, nested like shells. Somebody was sending layers through steam, like tides. Morning unfurled was butter light, mild and golden. The bell chimed twice, comfort returning. Mrs. Nettleby brought lemon biscuits shaped like boats, charmed. The miller left a sack of rye flour, shy and stout. Tamsin stacked the bowl of comfort notes, alphabet tidy. A new note lay among them, sea-scented. It asked for help with a mapless memory, tenderly phrased. I forget the path to somewhere I loved. Once, it read, I remember a citrus wind and bells. At dusk, no name signed it, only a copper dot. Marin brewed south wind's citrus with a quiet smile, listening. As the steam climbed, she placed the attic map nearby. She rotated the paper to the reversed compass, south atop. The brook line wavered into a shoreline echo, astonishingly gentle. Mapletown became a tiny cove by scent and memory. Mr. Deverell hummed an old harbor hymn, eyes bright. We had a bell at the ferry plank years ago, he said. Retired when the new bridge came, quietly tucked away. Tamsin checked her ledger of town things, finger fleet. Ferry bell stored at the smithy loft. Wrapped, she read. They walked to the smithy under cloud lace. Content. The blacksmith's grandchild opened the loft with a grin. Proud. Dust sighed like old pages turning, slow and kind. The ferry bell sat on burlap, patient and bright. A paper star hung from its yoke, folded neat. On the star someone had penned a riddle, gentle and spare. If south is north and shore is streak, ring me once, it read. Then follow citrus where barley meets loam, and listen. Marin lifted the clapper with care, calm and steady. One soft note rolled through beams like butter, satisfying. Outside, the mill's rice scent met the baker's orange glaze. Barley met citrus, just as the riddle said. They followed the mingled aroma downland, past boots and pans. It pooled by a narrow courtyard, brick and ivy. A forgotten door awaited there, painted sea green. On the lintel, a copper dot glowed softly. pressed the dot with her thumb, measured and warm. A latch clicked and the door's hard, pleased. Inside lay a little room like a pocket, cozy and spare. Maps lined the walls like quilts, stitched in ink. This was the memory room, Tamsin whispered. Shelves kept down routes people feared to lose, safely. The desk held the ledger of pets and comforts, tenderly written. On the first page, Elsie's careful hand returned. When deaths fade, trade tea for guidance, it said. A single new entry waited on a blank card, hopeful. To the place with bells and citrus wind. At dusk, it began. Marin set south wind citrus to steam in a travel pot. Gentle. She wafted the scent over blank paper. Slowly. Lines appeared like tide-shy footprints, forming a path. The route curved behind the mill, past a willow. It crossed a bridge that wasn't a bridge, only shadow. Then it ended at the fairy plank stone, still present. Mr. Dovewell nodded, eyes happily wet. We can mark it kindly for whoever asked. Quietly, he said. They tied a ribbon of citrus cloth to the willow, glad. They chalked a tiny bell near the shadow bridge, tidy. At the plank stone they set a lantern, low and sure. The memory room received a copied path, inked with care. Marin left a cup on the desk, still warm. Back at the nook, customers shared quiet stories. A pair of brothers brought a weathered harmonica, softly triumphant. It had lived in a drawer beside their grief, silent. They asked for a blend to white gentleness, without ache. Marin noted thyme, honey, and whisper pepper. Another envelope arrived by the sugar bowl, sea bright. Its seal showed the reverse compass again, faithful. Inside waited a sliver of translucent vellum, cool and smooth. When held to the shop lamp, stars speckled through. They matched no night sky above Maple Down, peculiar in kind. Tamsin overlaid the vellum on the attic map, carefully. The speckles aligned with landmarks of kindness, secret. A star sat over Mrs. Nettleby's biscuit tin, naturally. Another over the blacksmith's mended toy shelf, steadfast. One star hung lowly near the old watchmaker's, dim and blue. The star near the watchmaker feels forgotten, Marin, Tamsin said. Perhaps a kindness lapsed there, years ago. Marin brewed lavender barley for walking, calming. They strolled to the shuttered shop with paper moons. Slowly, the bell rope still hung inside the glass, patient and dusty. A tiny copper dog waited on the sill, shy. Marin tapped it with a knuckle, gentle as bread. The latch eased, inviting them in. The shop smelled of cedar and lemon oil, faded. Pocket watches slept in velvet nests, moonlike and dear. On the counter rested a single watch, stopped at 6. A slip beneath it bore tidy initials, E.L. again. For a promise unkept, set this right, it read. Mr. Dovewell cleared his throat softly, remorseful and small. I was to ring 6 strokes for Edwin late. Once, he whispered. He asked for a last bell for his sweetheart. Passing, he said. But rain and fever kept me home. That night, Marin placed the watch on her palm, warming it. She poured a thread of feather moon over brass, carefully. Steam stroked the face like a hush, tender and bright. The second hand twitched like a wren, then steadied. It began to move at 6 soft heartbeats, measured. Outside, Mr. Dovewell lifted his eyes to the tower. He rang 6 strokes for Edwin's sweetheart, long delayed. The notes drifted to the orchard and brook, mild and clear. When the last tone faded, a drawer clicked open. Inside lay a ribbon of pale blue, untie the neat. A small card waited there, ink gently faded. Promise kept, circle mended, it said. Marin tucked the ribbon into her pocket, care tender. Back at the nook, she tied the ribbon to the feather moon tin. Its color matched the vellum star by the watchmaker. Exactly. Elsie arrived with a basket of apple scones, smiling small. Her eyes read the room like maps, fond and quick. You are drawing the kindness constellation. I see, she murmured. Marin showed her the reverse compass seal, inquiring. Elsie's smile warmed like a kettle. Understood. South was our joke for homeward. Long ago, she said. When plans grew too north and stern, we turned south. Homeward compasses guided our exchange, secretly and kindly. A soft rain began, threading window panes. Customers lingered under awnings with teacups, glad to wait. Marin arranged a new door card, past, it read. A feather moon sketch glowed in graphite, gentle and bright. At half past, a single lantern burned by the brook. Its glass was misted with tea steam swirls, cozy. A tag hung from its handle, 3 words neat. Map the warmth, it asked, plain and kind. Tamsin handed Marin a pencil like a wand, smiling. She closed her eyes to listen for warmth, steadily. The bakery's oven purred like a sleepy cat. Southwest. The smithy's coal sighed contented, west and low. The nook's kettle hummed a mothering note, centered and near. She drew 3 soft circles on vellum, overlaid it on town. Where the circles overlapped, a petal shape appeared. At that petal lay a forgotten bench, under hawthorn. On the bench rested a closed tin, ribbon blue. A copper dot waited on its clasp, faithful. Marin pressed the dot with both thumbs, warm and calm. The tin opened to a blend called Hearthline, restorative. Notes of oat, vanilla, and pear skein rose. A card beneath named Tonight's Donor, quietly brave. From a neighbor who once forgot a promise, now kept, it read. Mr. Deverill exhaled like bells after rain, peaceful. Maple down drifted till late, lamplight and lullabies. Marin tidied cups with the rhythm of tides, measured and mild. The reverse compass mark lingered on the window, steadfast. She traced it once more, then banked the stove. Tomorrow would ask for new ears and eyes, and tea. Dawn wandered in on socks, quiet and warm. Marin woke to the kettle's gentle murmur, trusty and low. She wrote 3 lines on cream paper, measured and neat. South means homeward, share warmly, she penned. Maps are promises kept, she added, smiling. The nook opened to cinnamon drafts and clinking spoons. Mrs. Nettleby left a jam jar I owe you, grinning. A postman slid 2 envelopes beneath the saucer, careful. One bore the reverse compass, salt faint. The other wore a little sprig of thyme, thread tied. Tamsin arrived with an umbrella of bees, cheerful and striped. Mr. Dovewell followed with a pan of honey oat, still warm. They placed breakfast like anchors on the counter, inviting. Marin opened the time letter first, soft hands steady. Inside was a pressed leaf, roads. A message ran along the leaf spine, delicate and sure. If you remember the orchard gate latch, lift twice, it read. Then shared you where shadows cross, mid-morning. Elsie's orchard had a double lift latch, always. Marin pocketed the leaf like a compass, careful and glad. The reverse compass envelope held a map crumb, gloss thin. 3 small arcs were inked in copper, tidy and shy. Beneath them an emerald sideways, half 3. Half past 3 steps, Thames and mused, tapping. Or 3 half steps southward, homeward meaning. They walked to the orchard under linen light, breathing pears. The gate latch lifted once, then twice. Shadow lines crossed like folded map creases, mid-morning true. Marin poured a small pot of hearthline, steam low. A robin ticked in the hedge like a clock, patient. Where the shadows overlapped, a copper dot winked. Marin pressed with her thumb's warm pad, listening. A slate lifted from the path's edge, hushed and neat. Inside rested a note in tin, cushioned in moss. For orchard keepers of promises, it said, kind. The team's name was Orchard Line Dawn, pale and bright. Steam carried pear skin, white tea, and hay. Elsie appeared with twine in her pocket, smile small. I wondered when you'd find that step, dear, she said. The orchard remembers kindness and morning shadow, always. They sat on the low wall to sip, feet swinging. Elsie traced a feather on her palm, thinking, there is one more map I did not leave. Marin, she said. It belongs to someone who hides tidily, yet shines. Marin watched the robin hop like a metronome. Rye. Back at the nook, the morning crowd softened. A shy visitor lingered near the window, coat damp. Their hands explored the reverse compass mark, curious. They left a copper dot on the tip jar, silent and neat. Marin slid a hearthline sample toward them, gentle. Do you seek a path you loved? Once, she asked. The visitor nodded like a folded sail, careful. South is homeward, Marin said softly, pouring. Sometimes we point the needle with company, not iron. They sipped in tandem like synchronized clocks. Come. Tamsin sorted the kindness slips by moon marks, method sure. Some held for their doodles, others tiny cups. Copper-dotted notes formed a quiet cluster, east and near. Our anonymous cartographer circles the weaver's lane. Often, she said, Mr. Dove Wilhelm the pattern like rain on slate, thoughtful. They visited the weaver's lane at noon butter, soft shadows brief. A loom's hush breathed through a doorway, steady and kind. On the sill sat 3 copper dots in a row, tidy. Beside them lay a thread card, dyed sea green. Weft hides the warp, yet holds it, the card read. Marin placed the vellum stars over the lane, aligning edges. The dim blue star brightened at the thread's end, hopeful. She brewed a small pot of south wind citrus to coax. Steam curled under the loom like a cat, purring. A hidden panel side open in the treadle board, revealing tin. The label read Wiftway Comfort, stitched in ink. Inside lay tea with chamomile threads and oat. A folded scrap of map tucked beneath the leaves. Careful. If you seek me, step 3 half steps south, it said. Then wait until bells lean twice. Evening. Evening drew velvet over rooftops and candlelight. They met at the hawthorn bench again, light slow. 3 half steps south placed them by the brook rail, precise. The tower gave 2 leaning chimes, familiar and kind. A lantern kindled on the far bank, sea green. A shadow crossed the footbridge, steady and shy. The visitor from morning stood beneath the lantern, breathing. They held a roll of parchment like a sprig, delicate. I am Lena Corbel, they said, voice hushed. I'm apt for people who forget their paths, quietly. Lena unrolled the parchment with careful thumbs, measured. A map of Maple Down gleamed in copper dusk, different and dear. Streets lay like woven threads, warp and weft. Feather moons marked places where promises were mended, bright. Empty circles waited where kindness still needed hands, patient. I am not E.L., though I borrowed the compass, Lena said. I watched your exchange wake gently and breathed easier. I feared a town can forget its soft edges someday. Marin poured Weftway Comfort into 2 cups, steady. Steam braided the lantern's glow to the brook, silvery. Elsie stepped from shadow with a nod. her signature, humble and sly. Lena flushed like sunrise on porcelain, soft. I only wanted the circle to hold and hum. Marin considered the map's empty circles, thoughtful and sure. We can fill these with monthly small makings. Together, she said. One blend fermented promises, one for brave asks. Tamsin's pencil clicked like a tiny metronome. Ready. Mr. Dovewell hummed a lull under it all. Content. They chose the watchmaker's lane for next kindness. Gently. A tray of small tools needed hands and patience. Neighbors would lend eyesight and steady fingers. After stew. In return, the memory room would gain a clock map, clear and warm. Lena inked a copper note for the window. Neat. Days folded like napkins scented with bergamot. Pleasantly. The exchange breathed on a gentle schedule, even and kind. A marigold day brightened porches like buttered toast, cheery. A mending day fixed chairs and stories, both. A tea day blended whispers into tins, patiently shared. Marin kept a ledger of flavors and feelings, lined. Hearthline for promises kept, whiffed way for held hearts. South wind for homeward turns, orchard line for morning courage. Feather moon for the circle's beginning and end. A blank space waited for the cartographer's tea someday. On a violet evening, a final riddle arrived. It was drawn on onion skin paper, almost breath. A coastline of steam dotted the edge, like lace. Map the laughter you cannot hear, only feel, it read. Then pour south toward home, and wait. They gathered on the green beneath quiet stars, mild and silver. Marin placed 3 empty cups on the bandstand rail. Careful. She asked for a story from each neighbor, softly. As words drifted like feathers, she felt warmth rise. She poured feather moon southward along the rail, slow. Steam touched the wood and opened script again, glimmering. This time the letters drew a simple petal, centered. At the petal's core a copper dot brightened. Sure. Marin pressed with both thumbs, breathing in. The bandstand floor lifted a final panel, revealing a folio. Inside lay the last charter page, ribbon blue. When laughter is felt, not heard, you are home, it said. Blend warmth from each kindness map, chair. A recipe followed in watercolor dots. Moonlight neat. Marin traced each dot like stepping stones. Steady. They blended at the nook and lamplight hush, focused and glad. 2 measures hearth line for kept vows. 1 measure weft way for steady hold. A breath of south wind for turning home. A ribbon of orchard line for morning courage. Marin added the gentlest pinch of feather moon, smiling. Steam rose like the town's handwriting, familiar and true. They tasted together with eyes closed, listening. Flavors nested like neighbors on a bench, shoulder to shoulder. A hush fell that did not need sound, only warmth. This is the cartographer's tea, Tamsin said, eyes bright. It maps us to each other, gently. Mr. Dovewell placed the blue ribbon round the tin, careful and proud. Elsie leaned against the counter like a trusted tree, rested. Circle kept and carried, she whispered. They set a cup by the memory room ledger, fragrant and warm. A second cup went to the watchmaker's sill, glad and blue. A third waited on the hawthorn bench, patient as dusk. Lena inked a copper heart on the reverse compass. Finally, the mark on the window felt like a small sun. Home. Later, after chairs turned beetle backs again, Marin tidied lidded tins. She hung the sextant clip by the lamplight, polished. Her ledger gained one last line tonight, common sure. Map of kindness complete for now, to be edited, she wrote. Outside the brook kept verse like soft ribbon, endless. Morning found maple down bright as buttered toast, and calm. Sun with the nook's window maps, soft as cream. Marin drew a small compass on craft paper, centered. She labeled south with a tiny house, homeward true. The bell chimed once for a delivery, then twice. A crate of clay cups arrived swaddled in straw, earth warm. Each cup wore a faint storm glaze, blue and gray. Under the limpid feather moons, barely visible. A signature circled the base like a tide. Initial die, P. Tamsin lifted a cup to lamplight, eyes bright. If ache and pine, the potter by the reed beds, she said. She fires glazes that remember steam, somehow. Marin poured feather moon into a new cup, slow and sure. Steam curled under the glaze like copper faint. Mr. Devil hummed a harbor note, thoughtful and soft. Another kindness map, but personal-sized, Marin said. Tamsin fetched vellum stars from the drawer, carefully. The eastward cove lined up with reed beds, radiant bright. A blue star on the Weaver Lane flickered, answering. Reeds whisper when cubs remember steam. Perhaps, Tamsin mused. They carried a pot to the reed beds, unhurried. Dragonflies stitched light above water, emerald and quick. A vague and pine-shaped clay beside a kiln, hands steady. Her apron bore moons and freckles of slip, friendly. Your cubs found their map voices, if Agan, Marin said. They drew us kindly home, she added, smiling. If Agan rinsed her fingers in a basin, pleased. Elsie once asked me to teach Glaze's memory. Years ago, she said. She said steam is a pen for the patient, and brave. She lifted a towel from straw, sea green and thin. A reverse compass shimmered under sheen, homeward clear. Fired last week for your exchange. Quietly, if Agan said. Press the center when you hear soft laughter, not loud. Marin tucked the tile in her basket, careful and glad. They shared orchard lined on beside reeds, hay and pear. The kiln clicked like a satisfied clock, cooling. Back at the nook a traveler arrived, food stamp. He wore a coat lined with stitched maps, patchwork neat. A brass whistle hung from his collar, sea-toned. Looking for a room in a warm direction, miss, he said. His eyes caught the reverse compass, resting on glass. Marin poured hearthline and watched his shoulders ease, slowly. We point south when we mean home. Here, she said. He nodded like oars in a quiet harbor, grateful. Name's Calderbrandt, chart mender by trade, he added. I fix maps that forgot their promises, somewhat. Tamsin's pencil hovered over her ledger, curious. Calder set a roll on the counter, string frayed. He inbound a tideway chart with odd creases, crossing. At its edge a teacup icon bobbed, drawn small. Found near the shoal market, down coast, he said. The chart smelled faintly of lime and barley, familiar. South wind citrus clung to fibers in whispers, sure and bright. Marin set a steaming cot nearby, 2 cokes. fingers drifted up in neat curls, delivering a line. Bring laughter felt, not heard, to low shoal docks, it read. Leave the map of warmth behind, by lantern 4. Elsie tapped the counter twice, pleased and solemn. The exchange breathes wider than maple down. Dears, she said, we should answer politely and gentle. They packed a hamper with hard-lined cups and scones. If Hagen lent 2 memory-glazed tiles, sea green, Lena inked copper dots along a ribbon to guide. Mr. Dovewell wrapped the ferry bell clapper in blue. They walked at dusk toward the river skirt road, lamplight mild. Low shoal docks smelled of rope and oranges, beckoning. Lanterns numbered 1 to 8 lined the quay, steady. At lantern 4 a fisherman mended nets, humming low. Beside him a child traced circles in damp sawdust, intent. Marion set the hamper down and poured, warm and slow. She asked for stories in whispers, palms open. The fisherman spoke of a boat that learned patience after storms. The child offered a promise to feed gulls fairly, balanced. Steam climbed around lantern 4 like a shawl, gentle. Marin pressed a Fagan's tile center softly, listening. The clays brightened to a small shoreline bloom, lovely. Hidden script unfurled along the rim, sea bright. Homeward is where your laughter lands, without sound, it read. Marin left the tile by the post, gifted. Calder sketched a warm path on dock boards, chalk shore. A woman in a red shawl approached, eyes wet. I wrote the letter with lime scent. From here, she said. I kept forgetting which lantern to meet my son after work. Marion traced a copper heart under lantern 4, steady. Follow cups, follow warmth, she murmured. The boy tucked the tile into a basket, careful. He breathed on the glaze and smiled, wordless joy. Laughter trembled like a held note, felt not heard. Mr. Deverell lifted the bell clapper once, soft and low. Loshel answered with a calm hush, grateful. They returned by star crumbs and hedgerow, rusted. Marin placed a second tile in the memory room, safely. She inked a line in the ledger for Low Shoal, tidy. Lena added copper dots to the town ribbon, southbound. Elsie brewed a pot named Quayside Quiet, seaside quiet tasted of barley hush and orange pith, balanced. It steadied hands without stealing brightness, kindly. Tamsin labeled the tin with a small wave, curving. Marin smiled at the growing shelf, heartful. The cartographers debriefed among them, center and thread. A week turned like a slow page, linen smooth. A traveling tinker fixed the bandstand latch, whistling. The baker taught marigold cookies their sunny shape, cheerful. The blacksmith forged tiny compass charms to trade. Marin threw a map of shared hands, petal-centered. One evening a final whisper of puzzle lingered, sweet. A paper ring appeared on the nook's latch, moon-cut. Inside the ring tiny letters looped, river soft. What is the measure of a map without roads? It asked. Marin poured the cartographer's tea, thinking in warmth. She answered on a biscuit tag, plain and bright. Hands around a table, and promises kept, she wrote. She hung the tag inside the ring, gentle and sure. The bell chimed once, then leaned once more. Somewhere Hinch settled like a cat, content. Summer idled in, lavender at ankles. Maple down-set blankets near the bandstand, picnic bright. Lena traced copper constellations on a child's kite, patient. Tamsin told the story about a book that yawned, gently. Mr. Dovewell tuned a hum to moth wings, soft and round. Marin placed Tiff Hagen's tile at center stage, gleaming. She poured a ribbon of cartographer's tea, south the long grain. Steam rode a pedal that held the town, quiet and whole. No one spoke for a long heartbeat of peace, listening. Homeward rested in shoulders and cups, unforced. As twilight deepened, the brook kept its slough. Lanterns stitched a seam from door to door, bright and low. Marin closed the nook with a thunder brass, warm. She looked to the river bend where reeds remembered, smiling. Tomorrow would ask for the same skill, listening kindly. Autumn touched the hedges with copper and kindness. Market tents bloomed along the green, butter and clove. The bandstand wore a ribbon of blue, mended and proud. Marin polished the sexton clip, steady and sure. The cartographers debriefed from warm kettles, centered bright. If Fagin arranged cups that remembered steam, gleeful and shy, arms through shorelines as neighbors laughed softly. Lena inked copper dots on a town banner, tidy and kind. Tamsin posted a reading schedule, bees on the margin. Mr. Dovewell tuned a lull of bells, honey low. Calder set a small table of mended charts, patient. He showed children how folds remember when warmed. Steam turned creases into paths again, gentle as bread. Elsie placed Gwen's biscuits in a ring, proud and bright. Her eyes found every feather moon, counting blessings. A traveler with tired shoulders paused, listening. He held his hat like a question near his chest. Marin poured hearthline into his hands, carefully. He exhaled like wind meeting harbor stones. Finally, south is homeward, he repeated, smiling small. The memory room door stayed ajar, welcoming. New paths were copied in tidy hands, unrushed. A boy mapped a shortcut to his grandmother's roses, glad. A baker traced a route for night deliveries, safe. A hush of felt laughter lived under rafters, warm. At dusk the bandstand lanterns woke, like stars. Marin set a Fagan's tile at the center, claiming. She lifted a pot of the cartographer's tea, measured and sure. She poured south along the grain, homeward line. Steam rode a pedal that gathered every face, together. Map us again. Tomorrow, a child asked, eyes wide. Marin nodded with a smile like folded linen, simple. Maps are promises kept, she said, softly. We will keep them with tea. Bells leaned twice in the tower, blessing the night. Later the nook dimmed to ember and rest. Marin shelved tins by their constellations, sure and slow. She tied the blue ribbon once more, centered and neat. Outside the brook braided moon